when working with heavy equipment is that we don't want fingers to be lost, we don't want ankles to be broken, and we don't want something to go missing that shouldn't go missing. So when I'm hitching, I never put my fingers here in our hook. We always carry the double tree like this, or as you just saw me carrying like this. Okay, and oftentimes I'm little, not strong enough as I should be, and my mentor before me was about 6'2" and 250 pounds, so I'm filling some big shoes at the college. One of the things you should be able to do is drive your horse while carrying this. You never let this really drag on the ground. Now a single tree you can. But what this device does is this is the apparatus that allows me to hook the log to the horses, okay? So this is one of the crucial tools, but the more important tool is actually the harness. So oftentimes we have a misconception about draft horses that they pull things. Well, they don't pull things. What the motion is actually is a push. So the horses, as I mentioned, wear a New England D-ring. A few of the parts of this harness, we have our hames, our collar, which is the leather part, collar pad. We have our tug straps, which come back here to the tug chain. Again, the loggers weren't that creative in naming. And we got our britchin, which is our braking system, our hip drop, and a few other nice lines that I'm not going to go into. All right. One of the things that I like to mention, again, is that push, not pull motion. So the girls are actually using the power of their shoulders to push into this collar, which then engages this tug strap, which is attached to whatever it is they're pulling. And so that's the process of how they actually are able to pull, if you will, is through the mechanization of the harness in cahoots with their ability to put as much energy as they do forward, okay?
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Is it beneficial to have blinkers on in the woods, and why?
Beneficial blinkers in the woods? I don't know. I would say no, but I also do ground skidding, so I don't use a lot of implements. Generally speaking, if you're in a place where you are using horses to log, chances are you're not allowed to have mechanized equipment there.
She's talking about...
No, sorry,
blinders.
Yeah, sorry.
Blinders. I think your blinkers like, oh,
I'm from the racetrack, so it's not blinkers.
yeah, blinders. Yeah. So, you know, people will beg to differ anything, right? Some horses can go into the woods and not even have a bit.
Yeah.
Right? Some horses can go into the woods and they won't even have drive lines. One of the things I like about the blinders is it's the distraction minimization.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. And it's that consistency I was talking about, right? So consistency keeps us safe, keeps them safe, keeps students safe, keeps the environment safe. So they've always been driven with blinders. They're always going to be driven with blinders.
You can use your solar power to power the blinkers if you need them.
Yes, yeah, exactly, right? That methane coming out, right? So, good question though, yeah. You know, again, other people, it's all just your preference. Also the trainability and the adaptability of the horse that you're working with, right? So, again, some horses train themselves, if you will. I know a gentleman, Don Hughes, who's the president of DAPNet, an organization I'm a part of out of the Northeast here. And he has several horses who, he puts a lead rope on them, they lead. He puts a bridle on them, they drive. He puts a saddle on them, they ride. You know, he doesn't have to do hardly anything with them. Now other horses, you might try without blinders on, and you'll notice that horse, every little thing. Oh God, oh my God, oh my God, right? And they're looking everywhere. You don't want that when you have a horse that's on the road. You don't want that with a horse that you have new students behind, and you definitely don't want that on a working animal, right? When I put the harnesses on my girls and the bridles on them, I want them to know that that's the job. Here's where I go. Question? Oh yeah, they're coming down. Cool. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and we're going to demonstrate skidding after our friends pass. So as I mentioned, Lady and Faye are a mother-daughter team. Faye is amazing with other horses, amazing even with other like pasture animals, right? I just went down to the state fair with the girls, and we ended up boarding them at my neighbor's house. My neighbor has a mini pony and a few goats. I was worried. I was like, I don't know if you want to put Lady in there with the goats, right? She might kick one of your goats. Well, I went over there the next morning, and all of them are standing under Faye. And Faye had made some new friends, right? So, Lady right here, the one closest to you, is very protective of her mother.
She's looking.
Yep. So she
everything.
knows there's another horse here. She knows there's stuff going on. She's making sure mom's okay. So It's, yeah, they're sentient.
Get them to work.
Yep, we'll get them to move. The other tool I'm going to use is a simple choke chain. All of you have seen that, nothing special.
Game on. Go. Yes, game on.
Double triggers. So when you're skidding with horses, one of the things you want to be cognizant about is the heel chain. So for different implements, you've got to use different aspects of the heel chain. For some of our 4 carts that we bring into agricultural fields, we might put them, say, 3 heel chains back, 4 or 5 heel chains back, and that's to help them with that pull, the power of draft that they need to get the implement moving, say, through tough soil, clay, whatever it may be. When logging, what we end up doing is we go all the way back on our heel chains, so that there's a nice space between the horse, the double tree, and the log. It also gives me some distance, right? There's some pretty crazy pictures of some loggers from the Adirondacks that like to ride on these things. I don't recommend that. I maybe have done it once in my day. I don't, again, recommend that. So oftentimes when you're driving horses and skidding logs, do as I say, not as I do. Don't step in between that. When you're skidding horses, or skidding logs with horses, generally speaking, you want to step off to the side. And so this is again where that groundwork I learned with these girls a long time ago in simple line control and voice command becomes incredibly crucial at moments like this. Oftentimes our beginning students learn to drive right behind the horse, nice and close, right? Because a lot of line can be confusing. It's only until, again, you start to master the skill set of whether actually working an animal or just driving them, that you feel more comfortable getting out to, say, the tails of the lines, making sure you have good space between you and the animal. The combination of work that I'm about to do with the horses is a unique set of skills that I've kind of had to perfect and am still working on, as you can imagine. It's a lifelong journey becoming a good teamster. So I'm not only watching my horses, I'm not only watching ahead of them to make sure that where they are is safe, that nothing has blown in front of them, that there's no obstacles, but I'm also watching my log. And so that requires a little bit of peripheral vision, a little sense of space, sense of worth, sense of area, right? And so in different scenarios like steep hill logging versus plateau logging versus that forest landscape, you're going to go ahead and decide what's the best scenario for me to use here. Now with a heavier load, I often use a logging arch. Does anyone know why? Just for the kicks of it? Less friction. So a logging arch, basically what it does, unlike right now what you're about to witness, is it picks that log up off the ground. And so it gives the horses the ability to pull more weight ultimately, to do a bigger job maybe more effectively, more efficiently. Whereas the ground skidding, there's a lot of friction, there's a lot of resistance, if you will, and so that's where sometimes that misconception of are they gonna pull comes into play, because if it's a heavier load, they do oftentimes look like they might be a pulling horse. Thankfully, this is a twig for our girls. I looked at this and I said, that'll be nice.
It was heavy when we loaded it in the truck.
I'm sure, yeah. And that's why horsepower is great, right? It takes a little bit of human power, but it's mostly them. And so as a working relationship, we're able to accomplish a lot of work together. Some of the safety things that are happening right now is Tim, who took the class last spring, Tim? Yeah? Yep. Last spring, is heading the horses. This is a practice that we, again, remain consistent 100% of the time. This is to make sure they don't step off as I'm enjoying my conversation with you and not paying attention to my lines, my horse, which I shouldn't do, but I am doing. Again, do as I say, not as I do. And so Tim's there to make sure that the girls are just kind of hanging out. They aren't going to work. They aren't going to step off anywhere, and they're not going to put me in danger. A few other things that you can notice is after the DoubleTree is hitched, we have not put the chain onto it yet. We're gonna wait until my attention is here, their attention's on me, and they know that there's about to be a heavy load that they may have to pull in any direction, okay? Another few things that I oftentimes recommend for logging is don't be by yourself, right? So I have Connor here. He usually, as I mentioned, is gonna do a capstone project at the college with the horses, measuring the different skid pressures, soil compaction levels of mechanized machinery versus logging arches. And so in doing that, Connor's practicing some of the safety precautions again that we would otherwise utilize if we were in a woodland setting. Okay? Are there any questions for about what we're about to do? Great. I'm going to have we'll do a big circle here maybe. We'll see how that goes. There's another horse. That's okay. Go ahead and hit. Choked up pretty good. One of the things you're also trying to do is make sure your horses aren't stepped up on their tug lines, stepped up on their chains. They don't have a hoof or a leg outside of the tug, which is a common problem that we see when you're logging or doing agricultural work. You always are checking to make sure the harness is in place, everything is set. You choke up your logs pretty close to the front of the head, again, to try to minimize some of that friction, okay? Tim, you got an escape plan? I'm gonna go straight ahead, I think, onto that road. Cool? All right. Go for it. Yep. Go ahead, Tim. See that step back they just took? That's another safety precaution. Tim had them. That's another safety precaution that we've trained our horses in different agricultural settings or woodland settings. One of the things you always want to make sure is that that tension you just saw that they had to pull is released. I read a really interesting article once written in the Workhorse Handbook, which I highly recommend if anyone is interested in. Please buy that book. It's written by Lee Miller. It's a little outdated, but it has some of the best information I've ever been able to grasp myself. And one of the stories that he shares in there is a really intimate moment he had with his animal, which was he was on the back of a disker, happened to somehow get himself caught up, lines caught up, and if that horse had not taken that safety step back, he would have lost his leg. And so this is, again, it seems so minute and it seems so minuscule, but ultimately it can be the very thing that saves your life. And those consistent things are things, again, without even a log or anything hitched, that we're going to practice and teach our students religiously. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a few more circles. You folks can think of questions, take photos, and then what we're going to do after this is we're actually going to take the team lines off. We're going to put single lines on. We'll unhitch our girls. And anyone with ample horse experience, we'd love to give you the opportunity to experience what a Paul Smith College student would go through if they were to take Draft Horse 101 lab with Sarah Doherty. Okay? So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and skip for maybe another 2 or 3 minutes. Feel free again to think of questions, take some photos, and we'll be back in the round pen in about that time. Okay? I'm going to go straight. Okay. All around. All around. I'm riding the chain.